Welcome to 5 Good Minutes. You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Mark with Kurt Bjorklund.
In Mark chapter 6, verses 14 through 29, there is a story that is like it's right out of the news. It involves royalty, so it'd be like the royal family. It involves sex. It involves religion. It involves confrontation. And the story is basically this. Herod takes Herodias, who had been his brother Philip's wife, to be his wife. And he basically, in doing so, has John the Baptist. And sometimes when we hear John the Baptist, we think it's like a denomination. John the Dipper is how Scott McKnight's translation translates this. And I like that simply because it reminds us that it was like John, the one who, in an odd way, dipped people in water, almost. So John comes and he says to Herod, "It's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." And Herodias had a grudge against him and wanted him put to death. But she could not, for Herod feared John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man, and kept him safe. So Herodias, because John speaks out, wants him killed. And Herod says, no, because he knows that there's something to John. And when he heard him, he was greatly perplexed, and yet he heard him gladly. And this shows something that is true, and that is, when we're talking about belief, unbelief, that when somebody's standing at the precipice of faith, they're both repelled by and offended by the word of God and yet intrigued by it. They're irritated by the messenger of God and yet drawn to the messenger of God. And to be greatly perplexed here is a Greek word that means to be caught between two opinions. And so Herod is caught between these two opinions. And an opportunity came when Herod, on his birthday, it says, gave a banquet for his nobles and military commanders and the leading men of Galilee. For when Herodias' daughter came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his guest. And the king said to the girl, "Ask me whatever you wish." And so this is probably a dance that we won't go into all the detail, but you can imagine. And he vowed to her, "Whatever you ask, I will give you, up to half my kingdom." And she went out and said to her mother, "What should I ask for?" And she said, "The head of John the Baptist." And she came in immediately with haste to the king and said, "I want you to give me at once the head of John the Baptist on a platter." And it says, and the king was exceedingly sorry because his oaths and his guest, he did not want to break his word to her. And he immediately sent a king and executioner to John's head. And he went and beheaded him in prison and brought his head on a platter and gave it to the girl. And the girl gave it to her mother. And when the disciples heard of it, they came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. So here you have the messengers confronting sexual immorality, John, and then he's killed. Now think about that. Here we are talking about faith and the belief that God can do and heal, and yet woven right into this story, we have John believing and trusting, and yet it not working out super well. And then we have Herod, who is caught between two opinions, and his window closes. And so if you find yourself sometimes believing, wanting to believe, not believing, trusting, stepping out, not stepping out, know that when you're caught between two opinions, that there is a possibility that that window closes and you won't move forward in faith. And then you have Herodias, who just is wanting to justify her pathway and is offended that anyone would have the audacity to tell her that what she's doing is wrong before God. Sometimes a church, a ministry needs to be bold and say to people in culture, what you're doing is not right before God. And there are universal standards that are to be held to and applauded. And so today, where do you see yourself in this story? Being offended at what God is asking, being held between two opinions, or being asked to be bold for what God has said and what you know is true?
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.